is what the orphans were told. The orphan train movement was a supervised welfare program that transported children from crowded eastern cities to the United States to foster homes located largely in rural areas of the Midwest. The orphan trains operated between 1854 and 1922, relocating about 250,000 children. And it says here that it decreased by the 1920s. The confused and often frightened children were auctioned off and used as slaves and cheap labor. Chimney sweeps were cut off from their origins, told to forget their pasts and their families that they originally came from. Some of their parents were still alive in the hospital. When the parents were in the hospital, they took the kids away. This really happened. This was a repopulation effort. Why did they need so many orphans? Why were they sending trainloads of orphans? One kid on the train said, "Where are we going?" They told him, "We're going to Texas." He said, "Wait, I can't go to Texas. My mom's still alive. I'm not an orphan. My mom's in the hospital in New York." And they just took off. So can you imagine what the orphanages were like back in that day? They were overcrowded and gloomy, probably disgusting. Dirty, bugs, mice, rats, cockroaches, anything you can think of. Wonder what the food was like. So this guy Charles Loring Brace, B-R-A-C-E, Brace. His name's all over this thing, man. Everywhere I look, all the research I do, he comes up. Wanted to put the kids in families. The families treated these kids less than their family. They didn't treat them like their son or their daughter if they had kids. They would treat them more like a worker. No emotional attachment. They were shoving them down chimneys. There's pictures of them shoving the little kids down chimneys like 5-6-year-olds because they would fit. You know, it wasn't like, "Hey, Leroy, welcome to the family. You're my brother from another mother." It was more like, "Hey, you live here? You're a farmer now. Go out there and shuck some corn." When a child of the streets stands before you in rags with a tear-stained face, you cannot easily forget him, and yet you are perplexed what to do. The human soul is difficult to interfere with. You hesitate how far you should go. Charles Loring Brace. So we're going to do a quick recap. The orphans were real. The orphan trains were real. It was a repopulation effort, and they were sending orphans all over the world using trains. So moving right along, now we are going to get into a little bit about the baby incubators. Yes, baby incubators. So during the World's Fairs and at Coney Island and all these exhibits, they had baby incubators where people would travel from all across the plane, right? Back in this time, supposedly it was like before electricity was built, and probably during like right around the time electricity was invented, and they already had these high-tech baby incubators to keep babies alive, like before they even invented electricity. I mean, doesn't even really make sense, but people would travel for days. They didn't have cars. They didn't have airplanes back then. They had to take a ship. People would come from all over the world, like Europe and everywhere. They would come for babies. They were coming for the babies. These World's Fairs were set up and demolished right away. These structures were beautiful. None of it really makes sense. Honestly, I'm going to give it to you straight. I think, with my research, that these World's Fairs were a cover for people to pick up babies. And people were coming all over the world to these baby exhibits, and they had babies on exhibit in baby incubators where you could get your own live baby. So this was part of the repopulation effort too. So orphan trains and baby incubators. Here's a fun fact. Incubators for babies had been developed by a French obstetrician named Stéphane Tanier. He had seen them being used at the zoo on baby chicks and decided to reverse engineer them to use them on human babies. So they were used on chickens. They were used to keep baby chickens, baby birds alive. And this French guy was like, bonjour, oui, oui. Let's use them on babies. Okay, are you staying with me here? So what I've shown you so far is that they had baby incubators and they had orphan trains to repopulate as a repopulation effort in the late 1800s, early 1900s. So where did they get all of these human babies and children? Over 250,000 children. I mean, you need a male and a female to make a baby. I mean, how many males and females did they have to make all these babies? And they kept it compartmentalized. So they told all the kids that their train was the only train. So every kid on the train thought that that was like the only orphan train, but there was like tons of orphan trains, and it wasn't just in the Midwest. It went all over the world, everywhere, all across the plain.